Manchester United Football Club, better known as Manchester United, is a football club that plays in the English Premier League. Its location is in the United Kingdom, in the city of Manchester, and its home is Old Trafford, also known as the Theatre of Dreams, located on Sir Matt Busby Way, Trafford Park, Stretford in that city's origins. It was founded in 1878, under the name Newton Heath LYR Football Club. At that time, employees of the railway company, Lancashire and Yorkshire, had permission to do physical activity in their free time, so they chose to form a football team. Their first matches were against other companies. The meetings were at North Road, the stadium that was close to his workplace and with a shirt with very different paints than the current ones, green and gold. The first years his first participation in an important football competition of the time was in the well-known FA Cup of 1886/87. The rival on that occasion was Fleetwood Rangers and the match ended tied 2-2. However, Newton did not show up to play in extra time, which resulted in its elimination from the tournament, along with the impossibility of participating in the competition until 1889. In the 1892/93 season, the First Division was played in England for the first time. In that same year, the players had become independent from the railway company, so they removed the initials LYR and the full name remained Newton Heath Football Club. The Heathens, as they were known at the time, were in the top flight due to their good performance in the previous league. But, in 1895 they had to lose category and play in the second division. Manchester United, after the economic effort made by the team in previous years, in 1902 the Heathens reached a financial crisis so great that it bankrupted them. Faced with this situation, the captain of the team himself, Harry Stafford, looked for business people who were capable of investing in order to get out of the monetary difficulties they were suffering. One of them was John Henry Davies. Due to his investment, he became the club president and promoted the name change. This became official on April 24 of that year, when Newton Heath was renamed Manchester United Football Club. Returned with title after 11 years in the second division, Manchester United achieved promotion to the First Division in 1906, under the command of James Ernest Mangnall. The following season, in 1907/1908, he would win the first title in the club's history at the national level, when he finished first in the standings, 9 points behind Aston Villa, which was his runner-up. The following season, those led by Mangnall lifted another title for the first time in history, the FA Cup. Then they narrowly defeated Bristol City in London in the final. This was the first time that United reached the final of this competition and did so with a trophy, the first of the 12 that makes it the second most winners, behind Arsenal, which has one more. The 1910/1911 season was Manchester's last good season as it ended with a title. But, the following season, the coach with whom he had finished in the first places left his position to go to his eternal city rival, Manchester City. Since then, the team was not the same. On the other hand, to the record of that time we must add the Community Shield of 1908 and 1911, which he won against Queen's Park Rangers and Swindon Town, respectively. World crisis. Crisis in Manchester. With the departure of Mangnall, Manchester's good campaigns decreased. To this, added to the football inactivity due to the First World War from 1915 until the 1919/1920 season, the following year, the club was relegated to the second division. In 1925, United returned to the First Division, but in 1931 they lost the category again. This crisis worsened when the main benefactor, John Henry Davies, died, causing the deterioration in the club's finances. This almost led to the bankruptcy of Manchester United, but James W. Gibson made a large investment which managed to save the institution. During the Second War, in 1941, Old Trafford was bombed, forcing them to move to the Main Road Stadium, home of City, until 1949 when they returned to their old home. Post-Second War, after football returned in 1945, it was pure success for Manchester United. By Alexander Matthew Busby, better known as Sir Matt Busby, the second longest-serving coach on the bench, after Sir Alex Ferguson. Despite finding the bombed stadium, one of the first memories he had upon arriving there were, in that office there wasn't much space to dream or much time for that, but if there was one thing I did there it was dream. In those first 5 years, the team always finished within the first 4 positions, including 2 runners-up finishes. To that, in 1948, a new Fall Cup title was added to the showcases by defeating Blackpool. Busby Babes' 50s were one of the glorious years for Manchester United. In the 1951/1952 season, the team won the league title again after 41 years. He would do the same in 1956 and 1957 consecutively, in addition to always remaining in the first positions. These great years of glory for this team were based on the great management of Sir Matt Busby. This coach was based on a team without large expenditures on stars, so he relied mainly on the development of the club's young promises, in addition to revolutionizing with a much more direct game that gave him great results, something different in that time. The press called them Busby Babes. Some examples of these young footballers were Jackie Blanchflower, Burn, Mark Jones, Eddie Coleman and Duncan Edwards. The average age of that team was only 22 years old, but that was not what the scoutsmen thought. They still had the marks from the crib, but you couldn't tell. Another of the young people who aspired to succeed at Old Trafford was a certain Bobby Charlton, who scored twice in his debut against Charlton Athletic, showing all the potential and category that the forward had, not only in Manchester, but in the national team of England. Busby didn't just want to dominate England, he wanted to dominate Europe, but he didn't have permission from the Football League. In any case, it was the first English team to participate in the European Cup. Their first game was a 10-0 victory against Anderlecht, although the illusion would come to an end after losing in the semi-final against Real Madrid. The Munich tragedy in 1958, everything changed in the history of world football. Manchester United faced Red Star Belgrade in the quarter-finals of the European Cup in Yugoslavia and had qualified by an aggregate result of 5-4. In the semi-final, AC Milan was waiting for him. But not everything was celebration. On their return home, they made a stop in Munich, Germany to refuel before returning to English soil. When it came time to take off again, he had 2 failed attempts. On the third, when he was finally able to take flight, the plane had a failure that caused it to crash. 8 Manchester United footballers died immediately. 2 others did not play again. Sir Matt Busby was hospitalized and was unable to take charge of the team for a long period. In total, 23 lost their lives in that accident that marked the before and after in football. In commemoration of those people, there is a plaque at Old Trafford including the names of the players. Reconstruction after the tragedy. The show continued and football had to continue despite the tough time United was going through. Jimmy Murphy took over as coach while Busby recovered. A totally improvised team, but that, in any case, managed to reach the final of the Fall Cup, although it was defeated against Bolton Wanderers. In 1960, Busby restarted the reconstruction of Manchester to return to what it was before the tragic accident. It focused on one of its great figures, Sir Robert Bobby Charlton. This took him 5 years to win the league title again, but he would repeat it 2 years later. The first Champions League by staying in first place in the First Division, Manchester United qualified for the European Cup in 1968. After a long road of eliminating Hibernians, Sarajevo, Gornik Zagreb and none other than Real Madrid in the semi-final. 10 years after the tragedy, Manchester United had the revenge of being able to change that bad feeling for one of glory. The rival in the final was UC Bios in Ithaca, which made it even more exciting. That match was held at Wembley, London. In all, the Reds Devils were close to home, in their country, at home, so they had a home field. Bobby Charlton was the first to score for United, but Gradka tied the match against the Portuguese, so the match was going to be decided in extra time. There, Busby's men showed no mercy. Best scored first, Kidd, 2 minutes later, was responsible for stretching the lead, while, again, Charlton sealed the final 4-1. In this way, Manchester United won the European Cup for the first time in history, as well as the first time that an English team had won this title. The following year, Matt Busby's cycle would come to an end after 24 years. From glory to failure, Wolf McGuinness, reserve coach, remained in charge of the team. His cycle was not good and, in 1970, Busby returned to his position. Despite this, his stay lasted only a few months when he was replaced by Frank O'Farrell. Manchester United, after touching the sky with their hands, began to fall into an endless pit. Although the club avoided losing the category in 1973, the following season it had no choice. On the other hand, that year, he lost his top scorer at that time, Bobby Charlton, but in his farewell match he left a phrase that will remain in the history of the hearts of United fans: "All the children of Manchester dream of succeeding in this theatre. I have fulfilled my dreams here." Since then, Old Trafford has been known as the Theatre of Dreams. Another tragedy for the Reds Devils, not as significant as that of '58, but painful nonetheless. And it was more painful to know that they were going to be relegated to the second division against Manchester City, and that the person in charge of scoring the only goal of the match was an important piece of Busby's team, Denis Law, who gave the team the advantage. As a backheel citizen, I don't celebrate it. He froze at that moment and asked to be relieved, in what would be his penultimate game as a professional, as United's last game in the first division. Return a single season was enough for Manchester to be in the second category. He finished in first place and that allowed him to return to the first division. The following year, he played in the FA final, although it was a defeat against Southampton to win the title again. You have to travel back to 1981, when Ron Atkinson was in charge of the team. Was this coach at the helm? In 1983 and 1985, they added 2 new FA Cups after defeating Brighton and Everton. Its cycle would end in 1986. Ferguson's era of glory after Atkinson's departure. On November 6, 1986, Sir Alex Ferguson was made official as the new manager of Manchester United. His main problem was the lack of professionalism of his staff. The scout arrived to provide discipline to the team that allowed it to rise from 21st place to 11th. In the 1987 season, with a team more armed in its style, it managed to finish in second place, behind Liverpool, which won the title. 3 years later, despite the great additions, the team's level declined and, after a tough 5-1 defeat against Manchester City, like the 6 defeats in the road, they provoked insults from the fans at Old Trafford. The FA Cup match against Nottingham Forest could be the last of the Ferguson era. However, despite the negative predictions, United won and the manager remained in his position. Not only that, they reached the final and won against Crystal Palace. Thus, Sir Alex won his first title the following season. They managed to win the UEFA European Cup Winners' Cup in 1991, then they beat Barcelona 2-1. In addition, they won the European Super Cup that same year, and a runner-up finish in the League Cup. Despite winning the FA Cup in 1992, Ferguson was questioned by the press about whether he could match Matt Busby, as well as whether he was capable of winning the Premier League, the main objective. It had to wait, but it came to fruition in 1993, after 26 years, along with the FA Cup, something that no English club had achieved before, winning 2 titles in the same season. Upon complaint, and after several years of building the team base with its respective operation, Ferguson's United won the Premier League in 7 of the 9 years since 1993. In addition, they added 4 FA Cups. Nothing could match what would happen in 1999, a special year in the history of Sir Alex Ferguson's Manchester United. He was not only making history with his team, winning titles, numbers, achieving things that others had not achieved before. That year, the Reds Devils achieved something unique up to that point and something that no one has been able to match to this day. Sir Alex's team won the Premier League, the FA Cup and the Champions League all in the same season. In the FA the victim was Newcastle, while their European rival was Bayern Munich, who had to wait until the last breath to become King of Europe thanks to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's goal for those titles. By beating Palmeiras, he won the Intercontinental Cup. These achievements allowed Ferguson to be knighted by Queen Elizabeth thanks to his contribution to English football. In the 2007-08 season, the UEFA Champions League returned to Manchester. This is because, in Moscow, United faced Chelsea in the final. In regular time, they tied 1-1 due to a goal from Cristiano Ronaldo, one of their greatest figures. In the penalty shootout the champion was determined. Ryan Giggs scored, Van der Sar blocked and Ferguson added one more star. In 2010-11, United won their 19th Premier League and became the competition's record winners. A year later, he added his 28th start. This would be Ferguson's last title as, after 27, he would leave his position in charge of Manchester United. Some players who stood out in the Ferguson era at a global level and came to bring out their best version were Beckham, Van Persie, Gif, Van der Sar, Rooney, Berbatov, Scholes, Owen, Roy Keane, Cristiano Ronaldo, Eric Cantona, Peter Schmeichel, among others. Under his charge, Ferguson's United won 13 Premier League, 5 FA Cup, 5 League Cup, 10 Community Shield, 2 Champions League, 1 Intercontinental, 1 Club World Cup, 1 UEFA Cup Winners' Cup and 1 Super Cup, giving one of 39 titles. All by Sir Alex Ferguson. The post-Ferguson era since then, Manchester has been unstable. He did not find a clear direction, seeming to never be able to overcome Sir Alex's departure. Despite having won titles, none were as forceful as when the Skull was in charge. Moyes was his replacement. He did not have a good campaign and was fired after a few months. Giggs became their coach and player, but the team failed to qualify for the Champions League, something that had not happened since 1995, nor for the Europa League, which meant that they had not qualified for European competitions since 1990. In May 2014, the Louis van Gaal era began. Great investments are those that characterized this period that put them back in the Champions League in the first season. In any case, they were eliminated in the group stage and finished in 5th place in the Premier League. He won the 2016 FA Cup, but the Dutchman would be relegated from his position due to poor returns compared to investments. In 2016 it was Jose Mourinho's turn at Manchester United. That same year, he was in charge of winning the Community Shield against Leicester, the English League Cup against Southampton, and the Europa League for the first time in history, against Ajax. In 2018, he was fired for failing to place in the first 4 places. His interim replacement was an old acquaintance of the house, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. However, a wave of victories allowed him to stay in office permanently until today, although the team still does not resemble that of the Ferguson era, the team that will face in the coming years.